A lost library of human history sits silently in plain sight. We uncover ancient cities and priceless treasures, but our greatest frustration comes from artifacts we simply cannot read. These objects hold stories, laws, and songs from worlds long gone, yet their messages remain locked away. This journey explores 25 unearthed relics with unknown languages, each a puzzle that has resisted the world's best codebreakers and scholars for centuries. By the end, you will discover the full scope of these ancient mysteries, from a clay disc that defies all logic to a manuscript filled with plants that do not exist. What secrets were so important that they were encoded in a language meant for no one else to understand? Which of these silent voices from the past most makes you wonder what we have lost? Buried within the ruins of a Minoan palace on the island of Crete, a single clay object defies every assumption we have about ancient writing. Discovered in 1908 within the Phaistos Palace complex, this fired clay disc is roughly the size of a small plate. But its surface holds a mystery that has consumed researchers for over a century. Arranged in a tight, clockwise spiral are 242 symbols, each one not carved by hand but stamped into the clay with a seal. This single fact makes the Phaistos Disc unique in the entire ancient world. It is the earliest known example of movable type printing, a technology that would not reappear for another 3,000 years. Who created this precocious method, and why was it seemingly used only once? The symbols themselves are a captivating gallery of tiny figures. You can see a walking man, a woman's head with an elaborate plumed headdress, a shield, a bee, a boat, and even a captive with his arms tied behind his back. They are grouped into what appear to be 45 distinct words separated by short lines. The entire message spirals inward from the edge, a silent speech frozen in clay. The immediate hope was that this was a form of Linear A, the still undeciphered script of the Minoans, but the symbols on the disc match nothing else ever found. They are a complete isolate, a language designed for this one object alone. This isolation has made decipherment nearly impossible. Without a bilingual text like a Rosetta Stone or even more examples of the same script, codebreakers have nothing to compare it to. Over the decades, dozens of translations have been proposed, each one collapsing under scrutiny. Some believe it is a religious hymn, a prayer to a Minoan goddess. Others argue it is a legal document, perhaps a list of taxes or a treaty. A more adventurous theory suggests it is an ancient board game with a spiral representing the playing path. The most compelling question remains: why would someone go to the immense trouble of creating a set of individual seals, only to produce a single, short message before the technology and the language vanished forever? Visualize the disc turning slowly, its stamped figures casting long shadows. Each theory is an animated guess, a flicker of light trying to illuminate a truth that has been dark for 3,500 years. While the Phaistos Disc stands alone, an entire civilization speaks in fragments. Across what is now Pakistan and northwest India, the cities of the Indus Valley civilization flourished over 4,000 years ago, a society so advanced it had planned cities with sophisticated drainage and water supply systems. Yet from this vast and complex culture, we have recovered thousands of small stone seals and tablets, each inscribed with a short, elegant, and utterly mysterious script. These are not grand proclamations on palace walls. They are tiny, intimate objects, most no larger than a postage stamp, carved with a beautiful precision that has survived millennia. Their surfaces are a gallery of ancient art, featuring stunning depictions of animals like unicorns, bulls, and elephants, standing proudly above a line of script. This script is what captivates and confounds us. It consists of between 400 and 500 distinct signs, a mix of abstract symbols and stylized human and animal figures. The inscriptions are cruelly short, averaging only 4 or 5 signs each, as if they are labels or names, not stories or laws. This brevity is the heart of the mystery. Is this a full written language, or is it something else, a system of proto-writing used for administrative control or religious symbolism? The debate is one of the most heated in all of archaeology. Some linguists point to the structure and patterns in the symbols, arguing they show the statistical regularity of a true language. They believe these seals could represent the names of merchants or deities, or perhaps clan symbols. Others counter that the messages are simply too short to encode a language like Sanskrit or Sumerian. They propose the script is not linguistic at all, but a complex system of non-phonetic signs, akin to medieval heraldry or modern corporate logos, conveying ownership or origin without forming sentences. This question is not merely academic. The answer holds the key to understanding the mind of one of humanity's first great urban societies. Were the people of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa leaving written thoughts, or were they using a sophisticated symbolic code that we simply lack the dictionary to read? Every attempt at decipherment has faltered, leaving us with a civilization that built wonders but whispers its secrets just beyond our hearing. Far out in the vast Pacific Ocean, on the isolated shores of Easter Island, another silent script waits. Here, the famous Moai statues stand guard over the land, but the true voice of the Rapa Nui people may be carved onto 24 surviving wooden tablets. Known as Rongo-Rongo, these artifacts are covered in thousands of finely etched glyphs, a flowing script of human figures, birds, fish, and abstract geometric forms. They were first noticed by outsiders in the 1860s, a discovery that came with a profound and immediate tragedy. The very culture that created these texts was already collapsing, devastated by slave raids and introduced diseases. The last elders who might have understood the script were gone, taking its meaning with them forever. This loss turned the tablets into beautiful, haunted objects. The glyphs are carved in a unique reverse Boustrophedon style. This means the lines of text do not simply run left to right. Instead, you read one line from left to right, and then you physically turn the tablet upside down to read the next line, which also runs left to right. It is a complex, deliberate system, proof that this was no casual doodling but a sophisticated written tradition. What urgent messages were they preserving with such care? Some researchers passionately believe the tablets hold the key to the island's own dramatic story. They theorize that the texts are creation chants, genealogies of powerful chiefs, or even records of the environmental collapse that deforested the island. Could the story of the very last tree be recorded there, a warning carved in wood about the consequences of consuming your own world? Others see a direct connection to the Moai. Perhaps the scripts are sacred rituals used by the statue carvers, or they name the ancestors those giant stone faces are meant to represent. One compelling, though unproven, idea suggests the script itself was an invention sparked by the first arrival of European ships, a desperate attempt by the islanders to create a permanent record of their culture as they saw it being erased. Each theory gives these wooden boards a different, powerful voice. Are they religious texts, historical archives, or elegiac poetry for a lost world? The glyphs remain frozen, their intricate dances and creatures caught in a ritual we can no longer hear, a direct parallel to the silent Moai who gaze eternally across their emptied landscape. Deep within a vault at Yale University lies a book that should not exist. The Voynich Manuscript is a 225-page codex, carbon dated to the early 15th century, and it is perhaps the most stubbornly enigmatic book in the world. Its pages are filled with a graceful, unknown script flowing from left to right in a neat, confident hand, but the words are only the beginning of the mystery. The manuscript is lavishly illustrated with images that are at once familiar and deeply alien. One section features delicate drawings of plants with bulbous roots and fantastical leaves, botanical specimens that correspond to no known species on Earth. Another section contains intricate astronomical charts with circular diagrams of suns, moons, and stars that do not match any recognized constellation. Further in, you find a biological section with intricate illustrations of tiny, naked women bathing in a bizarre, interconnected system of green, fluid-filled tubes. The entire book feels like a glimpse into a parallel dimensions encyclopedia of natural philosophy. For over a century, this beautiful and baffling object has been a siren's call for the world's greatest minds. Military codebreakers from both world wars who cracked complex enemy ciphers applied their full arsenal of techniques to the Voynich and walked away utterly defeated. They found patterns that suggested a real language, with word repetitions and sentence structures that felt natural, yet the actual meaning remained just out of reach. In recent years, even artificial intelligence has joined the hunt. Sophisticated algorithms have analyzed the text's statistical properties, searching for the hidden grammar of a lost tongue. Some AI models have suggested links to Hebrew or other Semitic languages, proposing a possible automatic translation, but these results are hotly debated and have not led to a definitive breakthrough. The manuscript's most mysterious pages only deepen the obsession. There is a fold-out section of 6 elaborate circular diagrams that look like cosmic maps of unknown galaxies. Another page shows a complex array of what appear to be pharmaceutical jars, connected by lines of stars, as if detailing a recipe for a celestial medicine. Who went to such painstaking effort to create this volume? Was it a masterful hoax, an elaborate nonsense book designed to fool a wealthy patron? Or does it truly hold the secret knowledge of a forgotten alchemist or a lost culture, its wisdom locked away behind a cipher that has so far proven unbreakable? The Voynich Manuscript is a beautiful ghost of a book, its pages overflowing with answers to questions we do not even know how to ask. While the Phaistos Disc remains a solitary enigma, another Minoan script was used for the practical business of running a vast Bronze Age empire. Scattered across the palace archives of Knossos and other Minoan centers are thousands of clay tablets inscribed with Linear A. This elegant script, composed of graceful lines and stylized symbols, was the administrative heartbeat of the Minoan world. Scribes used it to meticulously record the flow of goods, the size of harvests, and the wealth of the palace stores. We can even understand parts of these lists, as Linear A uses a simple and logical numerical system. A small vertical line represents the number 1, a horizontal line is 10, a circle is 100, and a circle with radiating lines is 1000. You can look at a tablet and clearly see an entry for 86 jars of oil or 400 units of grain. The quantities are perfectly clear, but the products and the people they pertain to are complete mysteries. This is the profound frustration of Linear A. We can count their wealth, but we cannot name it. We know they were meticulous accountants, but we do not know for whom or for what god they were counting. The language encoded by these symbols is entirely unknown and does not appear to be related to any other tongue from the region. It is a linguistic isolate, the native speech of the Minoans that vanished when their palaces fell. The later Mycenaean Greeks who took over Crete adopted the script and adapted it for their own language, creating Linear B. The decipherment of Linear B in the 1950s was a monumental triumph, but it only deepened the shadow over its predecessor. It proved that the script itself could be used to write an early form of Greek, yet when applied to Linear A, the same phonetic values yield only gibberish. The Minoan language remains locked away, a silent witness to a sophisticated culture that managed its empire with a bureaucracy we can observe but cannot comprehend. What names did they give to their deities, their cities, and their leaders? The tablets hold all the answers, written in a language that the earth has forgotten how to speak. The silence of the Minoan archives finds a distant echo in the baked plains of ancient Iran. Here, another script emerges from the very dawn of civilization, one so old it predates even the famed law code of Hammurabi. This is the Proto-Elamite script used in the region of Elam around 5,000 years ago, making it one of the planet's very first writing systems. Like Linear A, its purpose was deeply practical. Scribes used a sharp stylus to press hundreds of tiny, wedge-like marks into soft clay tablets, creating meticulous records of livestock, grain, and labor. These were the balance sheets of one of humanity's earliest states, the administrative glue that held a complex society together. Yet, holding one of these tablets today is a profoundly fragile experience. Many were never fired in a kiln, surviving only because they were accidentally baked in the fires that destroyed the buildings they were stored in. They arrive in our hands cracked, worn, and often broken, the ancient clay threatening to crumble back into dust at the slightest touch. This physical decay is a major obstacle to decipherment, erasing crucial symbols and context, but the greater challenge lies in the script's own infancy. It is a system still finding its feet with signs that are not yet fully standardized. The same symbol might look slightly different from one scribe to the next, or even from one year to the next as the writing tradition evolved. Researchers can often recognize the numerical notations, understanding the quantities being recorded, but the accompanying signs for the objects or people involved remain a locked vault. Was a particular symbol a cow, a measure of barley, or the name of an official? We can see the numbers, but we are blind to the story they tell. This is more than a linguistic puzzle. Cracking the Proto-Elamite code would throw open a window into the mechanics of early state formation. It would reveal how a central authority first organized an economy, distributed resources, and managed a growing population. These humble, crumbling tablets hold the blueprint for one of humanity's great social experiments, a silent testament to the moment we began to build empires, written in a language we have yet to learn how to read. The quiet, practical records of Proto-Elamite lead us to a far earlier and more mystical beginning. In the rich soil of the Yellow River Valley, at a site known as Jayahu, archaeologists uncovered a collection of tortoise shells that whisper of a ritual world 9,000 years old. These shells, found carefully buried in graves, are not blank. Etched into their surfaces are a series of simple but deliberate marks, a collection of around 16 distinct symbols. They are the Jayahu symbols, and they ignite one of the most fundamental debates in the history of writing. Do these scratches represent the first, faltering steps of the Chinese written word, or are they merely personal decorations, the signatures of their long-vanished owners? The symbols themselves are hauntingly familiar to anyone who knows the later history of China. Some look unmistakably like modern Chinese characters. One bears a striking resemblance to the eye, another to the sun. The most tantalizing is a mark that looks almost identical to the character for day, a simple open rectangle with a horizontal line through its center. This visual echo is what makes the discovery so electrifying. Could these Neolithic markings be the primordial ancestor of the complex oracle bone script that would appear thousands of years later in the Shang dynasty? It is a compelling narrative, a direct lineage from these humble turtle shells to one of the world's great writing systems, yet caution tempers this exciting possibility. The markings are isolated and few. They do not appear in sequences that clearly form sentences. They could just as easily be ownership marks, clan symbols, or ritual identifiers for the shells themselves. Each shell was found with small stones inside, suggesting they may have been used as rattles in shamanic ceremonies, their sounds and their symbols both part of a sacred performance. Were the carvers leaving a message for the spirits or simply marking their own ritual tool? This is the fragile line between proto-writing and true writing. The symbols have meaning, but are they communicating a fluid language, or are they acting as fixed labels like numbers on a house? The debate over the Jayahu symbols is a debate about the very birth of an idea. It asks when a mark stops being a simple sign and starts being a word. If these carvings are connected to the oracle bones, then the history of Chinese writing is centuries older than anyone believed. If they are not, they remain a powerful testament to the human urge to make a mark, to say, "I was here, and this object is mine." They are a beautiful, ambiguous prologue to a story whose next chapter will be written in bone and bronze. A continent away, another ancient slab tells a story we can almost grasp. Unearthed from a gravel quarry in Veracruz, Mexico, the Cascajal block is a rectangular serpentine stone weighing nearly 12 kilograms. Its surface is covered with 62 deeply carved symbols, a mix of abstract shapes, insects, and objects like maize and thrones. This single object, dated to around 900 years before the Common Era, has ignited a firestorm in the world of archaeology. It is potentially the oldest written text ever found in the Americas, a product of the mysterious Olmec civilization, the so-called mother culture of Mesoamerica. The symbols are arranged in clear, horizontal rows, a deliberate sequence that suggests a structured message, not random art. You can see a bug, an ear of corn, and a crosshatch design that might represent a woven mat, a symbol of authority. This layout feels like a true written text, a precursor to the complex scripts of the later Maya and Zapotec peoples, yet its very existence is a subject of fierce debate. The block was not found in a formal archaeological dig, but was recovered from a pile of quarry debris, leaving its precise context and dating open to question. Skeptics wonder if it is a modern forgery, an elaborate hoax designed to rewrite history. Proponents argue that the symbols are unique and do not match any known later writing system, making a forgery unlikely. If the Cascajal block is genuine, it forces us to completely reconsider the intellectual landscape of ancient America. It would mean the Olmec, who carved those colossal stone heads, were not just master sculptors but also inventors of a written language a full 5 centuries earlier than we previously believed. What was this heavy stone meant to communicate? Was it a king's decree, a record of a mythic event, or an offering to the gods? Each symbol is a silent word from the founders of Mesoamerican civilization, a language that could tell us how they saw their world, a world they built long before the great pyramids of Teotihuacan or the temples of the Maya ever rose from the jungle. The dense, waterlogged soil of a Greek lakeshore held a secret for 73 centuries. At the site of Dispilio, along the shores of Lake Orchiata, a wooden tablet emerged from the depths, a fragile survivor from a Neolithic world. It is a simple piece of wood, yet its surface is inscribed with a series of engraved symbols, marks that were made when the great pyramids of Egypt were still millennia in the future. This unassuming artifact carries a weighty claim that it might be the oldest known written text in all of Europe, a title that would fundamentally rewrite the timeline of literacy on the continent. The very material of the tablet, however, is the source of its greatest vulnerability. Wood is a perishable medium, and an object this ancient should have decayed into nothing long ago. It was only the unique, oxygen-free environment of the lakebed that preserved it, a perfect time capsule. The moment it was exposed to the air, a new race against time began. Conservation became an immediate and delicate battle to prevent the wood from shrinking, cracking, and turning to dust, a process that threatens to erase the very symbols we are trying to read. The engravings themselves are a captivating puzzle. They are not random scratches but a collection of linear and angular marks, some resembling branches or rudimentary letters, arranged in a structured way across the surface. They show clear signs of being a deliberate system of notation. Do these symbols represent a form of proto-writing, a code used by this lakeside community to record supplies or lunar cycles? Or could they be something even more profound, a fully developed script unique to this prehistoric culture? The implications are staggering. If this is a true writing system, it means that the peoples of southeastern Europe were experimenting with symbolic recording thousands of years before the Linear, a script of the Minoans, ever appeared on Crete. What urgent need did these early farmers have to make permanent marks? Were they tracking the seasons, naming their gods, or listing the families who lived in the stilt houses over the water? Each careful analysis of the faint lines is an attempt to hear a voice from a time so deep it predates myth, a voice that speaks from the very dawn of human settlement in Europe, waiting for us to finally understand its message. High in the Andes, a civilization built an empire without ever putting pen to paper. The Inca managed a territory stretching thousands of miles with complex census data, tax records, and astronomical calendars, all recorded on a system of knotted strings known as the quipu. To the Spanish conquistadors who encountered them in the 16th century, these tangled cords looked like nothing more than primitive trinkets or sorcerers' tools. They launched a systematic campaign to find and burn every quipu they could, a cultural burning of the books that nearly erased the Incas' entire written memory. But what the Spanish failed to understand was that they were not looking at simple tally marks. They were looking at a sophisticated, three-dimensional language of numbers and perhaps even stories woven into cotton and camelid fiber. Each quipu was a complex data structure. A main central cord served as the backbone from which dozens of pendant cords would hang. The placement, color, and spin of each string conveyed specific information. The type of knot, its position on the cord, and the number of turns in its knot all held distinct meanings. A figure 8 knot represented the number 1. A long knot could represent 2 through 9 depending on its turns, and a single knot represented tens, hundreds, or thousands based on its placement. With this system, a quipu keeper, known as a quipucamayok, could run their fingers along the strings and read out vast amounts of numerical data, from the population of a distant province to the contents of a royal storehouse. But the greatest mystery lies beyond the math. Some researchers now believe that the quipu was more than an accounting tool. The choice of colors, the way the chords were plied together, and their spatial arrangement might have encoded narratives, histories, and genealogies. A red cord might signify a warrior, a brown cord a time of famine, and a specific sequence of knots could tell the story of an emperor's birth or a great battle. These would have been tactile epics, stories you could hold in your hands and recite by feel. Modern scholars are like detectives trying to hear a conversation from a room where only one person remains. They are using databases to catalog every known surviving quipu, searching for patterns in the colors and knots that could unlock their non-numerical meaning. Each carefully preserved knot is a frozen syllable from a lost empire, a whisper of a history that was almost completely silenced, waiting for the day we learn to listen with more than just our eyes. Before the Minoans ever pressed stylus to clay for Linear A, they were carving in stone. The script we call Cretan hieroglyphs is a world of miniature art, a system of pictorial symbols found on finely crafted seal stones and clay bars. It is a script of elegance and power, visually distinct from the more abstract linear scripts that would follow. These are not the administrative lists of Linear A. The hieroglyphs depict recognizable things from the Minoan world, a beautiful catalogue of flora and fauna. You can see the delicate head of a cat, the curved horns of a goat, the 8-armed body of an octopus, and the distinctive shape of a double-headed axe, the sacred labris. Each symbol is a tiny masterpiece carved with a precision that suggests both deep meaning and high status. Who was allowed to use this beautiful script, and what was its true purpose? The prevailing theory is that Cretan hieroglyphs were the sacred or royal script of the early Minoan elite. The fact that they appear on seal stones used to impress an official mark into clay or wax points directly to authority. These seals may have certified ownership of valuable goods, validated legal documents, or served as badges of office for priests and rulers. They were personal signatures in a language of pictures declaring power and identity. Yet, despite its visual appeal, the script is a fortress. With only a few hundred known inscriptions, most of them very short, there is simply not enough text to build a reliable translation. The symbols refuse to surrender their sound values or their grammatical rules. Are we looking at a true writing system that could record complex speech, or is it a more limited, though sophisticated, proto-writing used for specific ceremonial or administrative functions? The hieroglyphs stand as the majestic pictorial ancestor to the streamlined Linear A, a more ancient and artistic voice from the dawn of Crete. They are the original visual language of the Minoan Palace, a code of power carved in stone that has kept its royal secrets for over 4,000 years. A dark, narrow cave in the Rhodope Mountains of Bulgaria holds a message scrawled in stone. The Satovo inscription is a collection of around 50 symbols carved deeply into the rock face of a small, isolated cavern. The marks are a chaotic mix, a puzzle of lines and curves that do not neatly match any known alphabet. Some look like distorted Greek letters, others resemble human stick figures or abstract geometric signs. The entire panel feels urgent, almost frantic, as if carved by someone with a desperate need to leave a permanent mark in this hidden place. Its remote location is a key part of the mystery. This was not a public proclamation for all to see. This was a message intended for a select few, or perhaps for the gods themselves, hidden away from the everyday world. Who would go to such a secluded spot to carve these strange symbols, and what were they trying to say? The theories are as varied as the symbols themselves. Some archaeologists passionately argue for an ancient Thracian origin. The Thracians, a powerful and mystical culture known for their gold treasures and warrior ethos, inhabited this region and were known to worship in cave sanctuaries. Could this inscription be a sacred text, a prayer to a god like Zalmoxis, carved by a priest in a moment of ritual ecstasy? The strange figures might then represent deities or mythical beasts from a lost Thracian cosmology. Another school of thought points to a much later date, suggesting this is medieval graffiti. Perhaps it was left by a band of outlaws using a coded cipher to mark their hideout or stash of treasure. The symbols could be a crude map or a warning to other brigands, or maybe it was carved by a solitary hermit, a religious ascetic living in the cave, who developed his own private script to record his prayers and visions. The very ambiguity of the script fuels the debate. Without a clear linguistic structure or a bilingual key, every attempt at translation has failed. Is it a true writing system, or is it a collection of magical sigils, symbols of power meant to protect the cave or curse an enemy? The inscription sits in stubborn silence, a riddle carved in rock that challenges us to decide if we are looking at a forgotten language, a secret code, or the profound spiritual markings of a lone individual. It is a reminder that not all messages were meant for our eyes, and that some secrets are guarded not by locks, but by the sheer passage of time and the isolation of a mountain cave. A mysterious book surfaced in Hungary in the 19th century, its pages filled with a script that has defied every alphabet known to man. The Rohonk Codex is a 448-page enigma, each vellum leaf densely packed with strange, runic characters written from right to left. It is a book of two halves, a frustrating puzzle wrapped in beautiful, bewildering art. Alongside the text are delicate, almost naive illustrations depicting biblical and secular scenes, but with a bizarre twist. Soldiers carry crosses into battle, yet Christ is shown praying before a triangular symbol, and his followers are gathered under what looks like a Muslim crescent moon. This chaotic blend of Christian, Islamic, and pagan imagery has sent researchers spiraling down a rabbit hole of wild speculation for over 2 centuries. One of the most persistent and romantic theories claims the Codex is a secret treasure of the Knights Templar, a forbidden gospel they hid away after their order was destroyed. Another suggests it is the work of a 16th-century Hungarian scholar creating an elaborate fake to gain fame, or perhaps a sacred text from a forgotten Christian sect that blended doctrines from East and West. The sheer strangeness of the illustrations only deepens the mystery. Why are there so many different types of crosses? Why do biblical figures appear in settings that mix European and Ottoman dress? The text itself is a statistical nightmare for codebreakers. It uses nearly 200 unique symbols, far more than a typical alphabet, yet some characters repeat with a frequency that suggests a syllabic or even logographic system like Chinese. This unusual combination has made computer analysis incredibly difficult. Recent scholarship has taken a new tack, focusing less on the text and more on the art. By meticulously studying the clothing, armor, and architecture in the drawings, some researchers now believe the codex might be a devotional text from the region of Transylvania, a cultural melting pot where these mixed religious symbols could have coexisted. Yet, even if the art is placed, the language remains a locked box. Was it written in a coded form of Hungarian or a lost dialect of Romanian, or is it a complete linguistic fabrication, a stream of conscious nonsense meant to accompany the peculiar images? The Voynich Codex sits in its library, a beautiful, silent argument between faiths and cultures, its true message waiting for a key that may have been lost to time itself. Buried within a Neolithic grave in Romania, 3 small clay tablets have ignited a firestorm that reaches to the very roots of European civilization. Discovered near the village of Tartaria, these unassuming objects are covered in a series of deeply incised symbols, including a horned animal, a stick figure, and a series of abstract lines and circles. Their simple appearance belies a profound and contentious question. Are we looking at the earliest known writing in Europe, a system that predates even the Minoan scripts by over 1,000 years? Or are these merely ritual objects, sacred ornaments for the dead with no linguistic meaning whatsoever? The debate over the Tartaria tablets is a perfect storm of archaeological passion. They were found in a burial site alongside cremated bones, a context that immediately suggests a spiritual or ceremonial purpose. Skeptics argue the symbols are not writing at all, but powerful, isolated cult symbols, akin to the signs a modern believer might wear as a pendant. They point out that the symbols do not appear in a clear, repeating sequence that would indicate a true written language. The arrangement feels more symbolic than syntactic, a collection of potent images rather than a structured sentence. Yet, for those who believe, the implications are staggering. If these marks form a script, it would mean that a sophisticated symbolic recording system existed in the Balkans around 5300 BCE, a full 2 millennia before the Dispilio tablet and the Minoan hieroglyphs. Proponents see direct comparisons to the early pictograms of Sumer and suggest a possible ancient cultural link across vast distances. Could these tablets be a local invention that paralleled the birth of writing in the Middle East? The horned animal is seen not just as a drawing but as a logogram, a symbol representing a specific word or name. The rows of lines could be numerical notations. When you hold one of these tablets, you are holding 2 completely different possibilities. In one hand, you hold a sacred amulet, a beautiful but silent artifact from a Neolithic funeral. In the other, you hold a fragment of a lost language, a whisper from a time when humanity was first learning to make its thoughts permanent. The truth remains locked in the clay, a silent argument over when and where the first words of Europe were ever written. The silent stones of the Tartaria burial find a distant echo along the Lebanese coast in the ancient port city of Byblos. Here, 10 broken stone slabs present a different kind of mystery, one not of isolated symbols but of a seemingly complete, yet utterly unreadable writing system. Known as the Byblos syllabary, these inscriptions are carved with characters of elegant simplicity, a collection of geometric and slightly pictorial signs that number just over 100. Their structure is what gives them their name and their tantalizing potential. Unlike an alphabet where each symbol represents a single sound, or a logographic system like Chinese where a symbol is a whole word, a syllabary operates in the middle ground. Each character stands for an entire syllable like ba or ab or log, creating a more efficient and fluid way to record speech. The Byblos script fits this model perfectly, its signs arranged in neat, short lines that look like they should be the royal decrees or temple dedications of a powerful trading city. The frustration is that we can almost taste the translation. Byblos was a crucial hub, a city with deep ties to both Egypt and the early Canaanite cultures that would give rise to the Phoenicians. Its name is even the root of the word Bible, a testament to its importance in the papyrus trade. Logically, the script should be a bridge, a missing link between the hieroglyphs of Egypt and the revolutionary phonetic alphabet of the Phoenicians. Some signs do bear a vague, ghostly resemblance to early Egyptian characters, while others seem to prefigure Phoenician letters. Yet, when scholars try to read it as either, the result is meaningless. It is as if you are looking at a familiar word written in a distorted mirror, the shapes recognizable but the sound and sense completely altered. Over the decades, there have been brave attempts at decipherment. One prominent theory proposes it records a very early form of Phoenician, while another suggests it is a Canaanite language using a unique set of signs. But none of these proposals have gained widespread acceptance because they cannot consistently translate all 10 inscriptions into coherent, grammatical sentences. The slabs remain a chorus of 10 voices, all speaking the same clear, structured language, and we are left standing just outside the room, unable to make out the words of their conversation. They are a perfect, elegant lock for which the key was lost in the very city that forged it. The sophisticated carvings of the Olmecs were not a solitary event. Further south, along the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, a successor culture refined the idea of writing into a complex and beautiful script of their own. Known as the Isthmian script, this system appears on just a handful of monumental stone sculptures like the stunning La Mojara Stela one. This towering slab of stone is a masterpiece of ancient art covered in intricate bas-relief carvings. A regal figure stands in an elaborate headdress surrounded by a flowing column of over 500 finely carved glyphs. This is not random decoration. The glyphs are arranged in neat, horizontal rows, a clear and deliberate presentation of a written text meant to last for eternity. The script itself is a mix of highly stylized, abstract symbols and more recognizable pictorial elements like animal heads and human hands. It feels like a fully developed writing system, capable of recording complex thoughts, yet its meaning remains just beyond our reach. The great hope for decipherment lies in its historical context. The script is often linked to the Epi-Olmec culture, the inheritors of the Olmec tradition, and it seems to be a direct precursor to the later, fully deciphered script of the Maya. You can see the evolutionary connection in the glyphs, a visual bridge between two great civilizations. Scholars have even proposed that the text on La Mojara Stela one records a specific historical narrative, perhaps the rise of a powerful king or a significant astronomical event. They can identify potential calendar dates and royal titles based on comparisons with Maya writing, but the core of the language, the verbs and the nouns that would tell the actual story, remains stubbornly encrypted. The problem is the painfully small corpus. With only a few known texts in existence, there is simply not enough data to perform the statistical analysis needed for a breakthrough. It is like trying to learn English from a single page of a novel. You might recognize that the word appears frequently, but without more pages you could never grasp the plot. Each Isthmian monument is a solitary chapter from a lost library of stone, a record of a civilization that clearly had much to say about its rulers, its gods, and its place in the world, spoken in a tongue that the jungle has since forgotten. The silence of the Phaistos Disc has become a siren call for the digital age. Modern researchers are no longer relying solely on intuition and historical comparison. They are deploying the formidable power of computational linguistics, feeding the 242 symbols into complex algorithms designed to detect the hidden statistical fingerprints of a real language. These programs analyze patterns in the symbol sequences, searching for the rhythms of syntax and grammar that would confirm this is more than just a list of names or symbols. One compelling line of inquiry has attempted to link the disc to ancient Anatolian languages like Luwian, which was spoken in what is now Turkey. Proponents of this theory point to similarities between some disc symbols and Anatolian hieroglyphs, suggesting the message could be a prayer or a dedication to a mother goddess, its spiral form representing a cyclical hymn or a ritual incantation. Another school of thought, looking at the repetition of certain sign groups, proposes the disc is a sophisticated ritual calendar. The spiral could map out a lunar or solar cycle, with each stamped word dictating a ceremony, a festival, or an offering to be made on a specific day. The most playful yet persistent theory reimagines the entire object as an ancient board game. In this scenario, the spiral is the playing path, and the stamped words are the spaces, instructing players to move forward, lose a turn, or draw from a stack of fate cards. The captive figure might send you back to the start, while the boat could allow you to sail ahead several spaces. Each attempt at decipherment, from the sacred to the secular, builds a different world around this single clay object. Is it a king's divine prayer, a priest's agricultural timetable, or a family's source of evening entertainment? The algorithms can find patterns, but they cannot yet tell us which world is real. The disc remains a Rorschach test in clay, reflecting back the hopes and hypotheses of every new generation that tries to give it a voice. This debate over the Indus script is not just a war of words, it is a battle fought with numbers and algorithms. Computer scientists have thrown the full weight of statistical analysis at those tiny inscriptions, searching for the ghost of a language in the patterns. The core question is one of structure. Does the arrangement of symbols follow the predictable mathematical rhythms of a true writing system, or does it reflect the random, symbolic logic of heraldry? Proponents of the language theory point to a key piece of evidence, the presence of what linguists call conditional entropy. This is a technical way of saying that the symbols do not appear randomly. Just like in English, where a Q is almost always followed by a U, certain Indus signs consistently appear next to others, creating predictable pairs. This is a powerful fingerprint of grammar and syntax, the underlying rules that govern all human languages. The sequences show order, not chaos, yet the skeptics have a powerful counter-argument. They agree the patterns exist, but they argue the inscriptions are just too short. With an average of only 4 or 5 symbols per seal, could this truly be literature or law? Could you write a meaningful sentence, let alone a poem, with just 5 words? They propose these are not sentences at all, but structured labels. Think of a modern product barcode or a family coat of arms, where symbols for a clan, a profession, and a city are combined to denote ownership in a dense, non-linguistic code. A successful decipherment would be more than an academic trophy. It would be a key to a lost world. It would give voice to the people of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, transforming them from anonymous city planners into individuals with names, gods, and histories. We could finally read their thoughts, understand their social structure, and learn why their great cities were eventually abandoned. Were they reciting epic poetry about their gods, or simply stamping a merchant's name on a bundle of cloth? The statistical patterns whisper that a language is there, but the silence of the stones keeps its final secret. The silent dancers and creatures etched onto the Rongorongo tablets may hold more than just earthly histories. A compelling line of investigation suggests these wooden boards are a celestial library, a complex record of the stars and cycles that governed life on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth. For a people who navigated the vast Pacific by the heavens, it is a natural leap to believe they would carve their astronomical knowledge into something permanent. Could the repeating sequences of glyphs represent a lunar calendar, meticulously tracking the phases of the moon to dictate the perfect times for planting, fishing, and holding sacred ceremonies? Some researchers see specific glyph patterns as markers for important astronomical events, like the rising of the Pleiades star cluster, a signal of seasonal change known across Polynesia. The distinctive birdman glyph, a figure with a human body and a bird's head, might not just be a mythological being. It could be a direct reference to the annual Tangata Monu competition, a ritual race tied to the island's complex social and religious calendar, its dates encoded in the script. This celestial theory transforms the tablets from simple records into a grand cosmic clock, the Rapa Nui people's attempt to synchronize their lives with the eternal rhythms of the universe. The path to understanding these celestial codes now runs directly through the living descendants of the Rapa Nui. Modern scholars are increasingly collaborating with Polynesian cultural experts and linguists, recognizing that the key may lie not in forcing the script into a Western linguistic box, but in listening to the oral traditions and cultural knowledge that survived the island's collapse. These collaborators bring an intuitive understanding of Polynesian thought patterns, metaphor, and the deep connection between genealogy and the natural world. They can look at a sequence of glyphs and see not just abstract symbols, but potential family lineages where a fish might represent a specific clan ancestor, or a wave might signify a great migration. This partnership is delicate and respectful, a slow process of cultural translation rather than a frantic code-breaking race. It acknowledges that the true cipher for Rongorongo might be a shared cultural memory, a way of seeing the world that was almost lost. Each new insight from this collaboration is like finding a single star in a dark sky, slowly revealing the constellation of a lost people's wisdom, a wisdom written in wood and waiting for its own people to help us hear its voice. The Voynich Manuscript's botanical section is a garden of impossible wonders. Page after page unfolds with vibrant illustrations of plants that seem to defy the very logic of nature. You see stems that twist in unnatural spirals, leaves with bizarre, unrecognizable vein patterns, and roots that look more like strange animals or intricate machinery than any earthly root system. For botanists, this section is a special kind of frustration. They can almost classify some specimens, spotting a leaf that resembles a pansy or a root that hints at a gentian, but the plant as a whole is always wrong, a monstrous hybrid that could never have sprouted from any soil on our planet. This is not a simple case of an artist with poor observational skills. The drawings are too detailed, too deliberate in their strangeness. Every peculiarity feels intentional. Could these be encrypted plants where the shape of a leaf encodes a letter or the color of a flower represents a number? Some researchers have tried to map the plant parts to phonetic sounds, imagining that dissecting a root might spell out a syllable of the mysterious text beside it. Others propose a more symbolic route, suggesting the plants are not real at all but alchemical metaphors. A bulbous root might represent a distillation flask, and a spiraling vine could chart the path of a chemical process, turning the entire garden into a coded laboratory manual. The most haunting possibility is that the artist was depicting a genuine, now extinct flora from a lost land, a botanical snapshot of a world that has vanished without a trace. Each theory transforms the manuscript's pages. Are they a scientific hoax, a fantastical herbal from an imagination unbound by reality, or the last surviving record of a forgotten ecosystem? This botanical puzzle reminds us that some codes are not made of words alone, but are woven into the very image of a leaf, waiting for a key that can make the impossible bloom into meaning. But what if the knots could also tie together a story? The idea that quipus were solely accounting tools is being unraveled by a series of remarkable discoveries. High in the dry Andes, archaeologists have excavated quipus from the tombs of nobles and local leaders. These burial quipus are different. Their cords are made of finer, more colorful fibers, and the knots are arranged in complex, almost poetic sequences that do not conform to simple numerical patterns. This has led to a revolutionary hypothesis. Perhaps the Inca developed a second, parallel system of narrative quipus, designed not to count but to remember. In a culture with no paper, the most precious histories, the most sacred laws, and the most beloved poems might have been woven into strings, creating a tactile literature you could hold in your hands. Imagine a quipu kamayok, a master keeper of the knots, running their fingers along a cord. A sequence of brown and green knots might not mean 20 sheep, but the story of a great migration across a verdant valley. A specific combination of a red cord and a complex knot could recount the birth of an emperor, his lineage and deeds encoded in the twist of the fiber. This challenges our most basic Western idea of what writing even is. We think of words on a page, of ink and alphabet. The Inca offer a radical alternative, a three-dimensional language of texture, color, and space. A narrative quipu is not read with the eyes alone, but with the touch, a physical recitation of history. The very structure of a story would be different, not a linear line of text, but a branching, interconnected web of chords where multiple events could be tied together in a single, complex knot. These burial quipus suggest that the most important messages were meant to travel with their owners into the afterlife, a woven soul of memory accompanying the body. The Spanish burned thousands of these texts, believing them to be idolatrous or worthless. In doing so, they may have destroyed the great epic poems and legal codes of an empire, silencing a library of stories told not in ink but in intricate, beautiful knots. A young apprentice in ancient Elam would spend years mastering the precise pressure needed to press a stylus into wet clay. These scribes were the accountants and administrators of one of the world's first states, trained in formal schools to record the lifeblood of their society. Each tiny, wedge-shaped mark on a Proto-Elamite tablet was a transaction, a measure of the civilization's wealth and organization. We can almost see them hunched over their work, meticulously documenting the movement of goods from the countryside to the central authority. Their records tracked barley harvests, the size of herds of sheep and goats, and the allocation of rations to laborers. This was not just bookkeeping, it was the operating system of a complex society, a way to manage surplus, plan for lean times, and control a growing population. The numbers are clear, but the words remain a fog. Deciphering this script would do more than give us a vocabulary list. It would throw open a window onto the marketplaces and workshops of a 5,000-year-old world. We could finally learn the names of the farmers who grew the grain, the merchants who traded for lapis lazuli from distant Afghanistan, and the officials who distributed the beer. Was the economy run by a powerful temple or by a secular palace elite? Did people own their own land, or were they tenants of the state? The answers are all there, encoded in the fragile clay. Every cracked tablet is a frozen moment from the dawn of bureaucracy, a silent ledger waiting to reveal the names, the deals, and the daily struggles that built one of humanity's earliest experiments in urban living. The tortoise shells were not simply buried, they were placed with purpose. Each one was found alongside human remains, a deliberate companion for the journey into the afterlife, and many still contained small, polished stones that would have rattled with a soft, percussive sound when shaken. This transforms the shells from potential notepads into powerful ritual objects. They were likely the tools of a shaman, an early spiritual leader who acted as an intermediary between the community and the spirit world. In the flickering firelight of a 9,000-year-old ceremony, the shaman might have shaken the shell, its internal clatter mimicking the voice of an ancestor or the approach of a deity. The act of carving symbols onto these sacred rattles would have been a profound act of consecration. A mark resembling an eye might not be a word for seeing, but a petition for vision, a plea for the shaman to see into the unseen. The symbol that looks like the sun could be an invocation for light and warmth, or a record of a successful prayer for a good harvest. This shifts the entire debate about the Jayahu symbols. They may not be the beginning of secular writing to record grain stores or kings' names. Instead, they could be the first attempts to write down the language of the divine, to make a permanent record of a prayer, a name of a god, or the outcome of a divination ritual. What if the shaman carved a specific symbol after a successful ceremony, creating a library of effective rituals for future generations to follow? These shells become frozen moments of spiritual communication, the very birth of theology captured on a turtle's carapace. They remind us that the human urge to make a mark may have been driven not just by commerce or administration, but by a deep, fundamental need to speak to the gods and have them, in some small way, answer back. Breaking the Rohank Codex's cipher requires a detective's patience and a mathematician's precision. Cryptographers begin with frequency analysis, a classic technique where they count how often each symbol appears. In a normal language, certain letters like E and T are used far more than others, creating a recognizable fingerprint. The Rohank text has this fingerprint, suggesting it is a real language, but the sheer number of symbols, nearly 200, throws everything into chaos. An alphabet typically has only 20 or 30 letters, while a syllabic system might have 80 or 90. This codex sits in a strange middle ground, with far too many signs for a simple alphabet, yet patterns that are too consistent for random nonsense. The next logical step is to compare its symbols to every known historical script, from runic alphabets to early Hungarian, searching for a visual match. Here, the codex offers false hope. A symbol might look almost like a Latin letter, and another might vaguely resemble a Cyrillic character, but when you try to read it as either, the result is pure gibberish. It is as if the author collected shapes from across Europe and the Near East, then shuffled them into a new private system. This mix of the familiar and the utterly alien is what makes the Rohank Codex a unique nightmare. It feels like it should be decipherable, its elements teasingly recognizable, yet they refuse to coalesce into meaning. Some theorists have proposed it uses a homophonic cipher, where multiple different symbols can all represent the same common sound, like having 10 different ways to write the letter E. This would explain the unusually large symbol set and could effectively disguise the underlying language. Others wonder if it is a complex code within a code, where the symbols first need to be converted into numbers before those numbers are translated into words. Each new approach is a key tried in a lock that will not turn. The codex resists not because it is random, but because its internal logic is so perfectly, elegantly hidden. It stands as a testament to one individual's determination to create a message that would remain silent for centuries. A cryptographic puzzle where every potential solution only leads to a dozen new, unanswered questions. The very structure of the Biblos syllabary hints at a practical mind at work. Its limited set of signs, each representing a whole syllable, points toward efficiency and ease of learning. This was not the sprawling, priestly script of an empire, but a tool designed for speed and clarity. Imagine the bustling docks of ancient Byblos, a crossroads where Egyptian papyrus, Lebanese cedar, and Aegean oils changed hands. In this cacophony of languages, a merchant needed a way to draft a contract, record a shipment, or send a message that could be understood by their foreign partners. Could the Byblos script be the solution, a formalized pidgin of the Bronze Age? A pidgin language is a simplified bridge tongue, born from the necessity of trade, that blends elements from multiple languages into a new, functional system. It strips away complex grammar in favor of getting the core meaning across. The syllabary's neat, compact nature fits this perfectly. It may have been a script designed to write down this international trade language, a standardized way to record deals that involved Hittites, Canaanites, and Egyptians all at once. The script itself might even be a linguistic fossil of this process. Some of its signs bear a faint resemblance to Egyptian hieroglyphs, while others echo early Semitic letters. This visual blending could mirror the grammatical and phonetic blending happening on the docks every day. A trader would not need to be a poet to use this system. They just needed to list quantities, goods, and names. The 10 broken slabs we have could be the equivalent of standardized customs forms or public tariffs, displayed for all merchants to see. This theory transforms the slabs from royal proclamations into the day-to-day paperwork of globalization. They represent the sound of a deal being struck, the first rustlings of a connected world, all encoded in a script that was meant to be universal for its time, yet has become a perfect secret in ours. From the stamped symbols of a Cretan disc to the woven stories of an Andean empire, these 25 relics form a chorus of lost human voices. Each undeciphered script is more than a linguistic puzzle. It is a sealed doorway into an entire way of life, a complete worldview that has vanished from the earth. We can excavate their cities and hold their artifacts, but without the key to their words, we are merely visitors in a silent museum, surrounded by beautiful, untranslated lives. The Phaistos Disc asks who invented movable type only to use it once. The Indus seals wonder if their symbols are names or poetry. The Voynich Manuscript presents a garden of impossible plants from a world that might never have been. These are not failures of archaeology, but its greatest motivators. They are the permanent, humming questions that push us to develop new technologies, to question old assumptions, and to listen more carefully to the faintest whispers from the past. Every one of these objects holds a story waiting for its reader. Perhaps the key lies in a collaboration between artificial intelligence and cultural memory, or in a single yet undiscovered bilingual text buried in the sands. Maybe the final breakthrough will come from someone watching this very video, looking at these ancient mysteries with a fresh perspective. Which of these silent voices calls out to you the most? Does the celestial map of the Rongorongo tablets capture your imagination? Or does the cryptographic nightmare of the Rohunk Codex challenge your inner detective? Share the relic that fascinates you most in the comments and tell us your own theory about what its hidden message might finally reveal. The conversation across millennia is not over, it is simply waiting for the next person to listen.